हेलो। आ रहा है? चलिए, so let's start. So as we have started discussing the executive and you have started precedents, so now today we will see the Article 54 election of president, and then we will see how the process through which a president is elected in India. We will take a recent example, like Ma'am Draupadi Murmu has been elected as a president. So we will see the how the counting process is done, what are the formula to be used in an president elections to elect our president. It's clear? So Article 54 is talks about the election of president. So Article 54 talks election of is it clear? Election of president. So Article 54 says that President of India is not elected directly but indirectly, and we have discussed why we have the constitutions has allowed an indirect elections to the president. So it says that the President of India elected through indirect method, right? So indirect method, it means that the citizens were not allowed to vote in the election of president. Rather, a representative of peoples were allowed to choose an president for the nations. So if we understand the indirect election, so we can understand here that suppose a citizens voted to choose MPs and MLAs. They are the representative of the peoples in a parliament and state legislature, and the representative of the people in parliament and state legislature will vote to choose our president. So this method is known as an indirect election. Clear? Where the peoples were not directly involved in electing the president, rather they are involved in only electing the representatives, and the representative of the peoples were allowed to vote for election of president. This method is known as an indirect elections. They vote for the president. It says that the president of India elect through indirect elections. So indirect elections and direct elections where peoples of a country directly vote. So people of the country directly choose their MPs and MLAs, members of parliament, right? Then MLAs, state legislature, and these representatives were chosen by the peoples were vote for the president. It means president is indirectly chosen by the people, not by a direct method where the citizens were allowed to vote. So in India, the president has been chosen by the citizens through indirect, through their representatives. Is it clear? Right? Now, we will see the electoral college. It means who consists under the electoral college of a president. Electoral College of election of president. The first, elected members of parliament. Means the elected members of Lok Sabha and elected members of Rajya Sabha are allowed to vote in the election of president. Then elected members of state legislative assembly. Not all the members of the parliament or a state legislative assembly, rather only the elected members, only those who are elected by the people of India will be consist under the electoral college of a president. As we know that there are certain members by the power of a president who nominate certain members in the house. So those nominated members were excluded from the electoral college of a president. Is this clear? Right? Then third, the elected members of legislature of Delhi and Puducherry. As we know that there are two UTs who has been provided with the legislative assemblies, Delhi and Puducherry, and Puducherry is provided legislative assemblies through the Article 239A. It governs through 239A, which is also applicable to the Jammu and Kashmir, and Delhi has been provided through 239AA and AB. So these two assemblies of UTs which has a legislative assemblies were allowed or were part of an electoral college of a president. And these third part or this third was added by the 70th Constitutional Amendment Act 1992. It means that before the 70th Constitutional Amendment Act, the electoral college of president was consist only the elected members of parliament and legislature. By the 70th Constitutional Amendment Act, Delhi and Puducherry were also included in the electoral college of president. It means the elected members of the legislative of Delhi and the legislative of Puducherry were also allowed to vote in to choose a president. Why? Because they have a legislative. No, it has a legislative assembly. That's why. Yeah. They have a legislative assembly by 239A. As we know that 239 to 240, which deals with the administration of UT, right? So 239 is given to administrations of Puducherry with legislations. These similar article 239A is also applied to the legislature of Jammu and Kashmir, which is ruled. There is an arrangement like this. It's an arrangement like this. Right? So, and 239A and 239AB, through which the Delhi has been provided the legislative assembly. Right? So that's why they have these two UTs. Only these two UTs has a legislative assembly. Now the Jammu and Kashmir is also allowed to have a legislative assembly. So after in 2022, the Jammu and Kashmir is not participated in a vote in a election of president because they do not have still the election has been conducted in Jammu and Kashmir and the assembly was formed. That's why the Jammu and Kashmir was not in a part of an electoral college. Are you getting my point? The Jammu and Kashmir is also by the 2019 abrogations of Jammu and Kashmir Reorganization Act has been provided with the Legislative Assembly, which is governed through the same article, Article 239A, which is applicable to Puducherry, right? So in this elections 2022, when our Honorable President Ms. Draupadi Murmu was elected, the participations of a Jammu and Kashmir in an electoral college is not there because the assembly elections in the Jammu and Kashmir is not has been held. Right? That's why they have no participations as an UT, because they have, though they have an legislative assemblies. They have to. This is a federal, correct? They have to. Because the president is chosen by the representative of the peoples, and where the people choose their own government, they have to participate. Is this clear? Yes or no? Right? And this, the third elected members of the Parliament, legislature of Delhi and Puducherry was added by the 70th Constitutional Amendment Act 1992. Is this clear? Any doubt? Right? Now here one exceptions we can say that, or one thing we should note, that suppose that if there is an dissolutions of any state legislature during the election of president, suppose that there in any elections that, like, we take an example of Jammu and Kashmir, there is no legislative assembly to the Jammu and Kashmir. So if any state whose legislative assembly is dissolved during the period of an election of president, so in that elections the assembly will not be participated because they do not have a legislative assembly. The election, if the election to that assembly is held before the election of president and the government formed in that state, then they will participate for the voting process in an president elections. But if there is a vacancy, it means that there is an absence, dissolutions of a legislative assembly in any state, so they will not participate. And that will not amount to be the ground of a challenge of election petition of president. It means let us understand in a simple manner that the election petition of president is heard by the Supreme Court. So it says that if there is a vacancy in any legislative assembly, if the legislative assembly is dissolved during the president, is before the elections of the president, there is in certain state the legislative assembly is dissolved and the election to particular state is not held and the government is not in a assembly during the president elections, so that particular state will not participate in a election of the president. So that absence of certain state in a participations of election of president will not make a ground on which anyone can file an election petition related to disputes of president. Is this clear? Yes or no? Okay. So we can say, see here that if any state legislature or state assembly is dissolved while the election period of president, so that state assembly will not participate in the election of president right? And if the fresh election is not held before the election of the president, it means that if fresh elections of this assembly is held before the election of president, then they will participate. But if there is no fresh election was held of that particular state assembly, so the assembly will not participate in a voting process of president. Is this clear? Any doubt? And this will also not leads to the challenge of being a ground on which the election petition would be filed. So this is Article 54. Article 54 talks about the election of president. The Article 54 also takes about that through which method or system the election of president will be held. So it says that the election of president will be held through the system of proportional proportional representations of single transferable vote. Proportional of single transferable vote through secret ballot. Through secret ballot. Through this method, our president is chosen through proportional representations of by means of single transferable vote, and the voting will be done through a secret ballot. Any doubt? Right? Now we will discuss how the votes were determined, the determinations, the formula to determine the values of votes of each electors, each MPs and each MLAs, right? Then we will discuss the counting, how our president is elected through counting, what method is used. So a person's need to qualify a president elections in India, it needs an absolute majority. And what is absolute majorities? 50% of the total membership plus 1. So this is an absolute majority. So the persons who acquired an absolute majority will be declared as an president of India. Clear? So for now we will discuss the process through which the president of India is elected. Through secret ballot. Huh? They can ask anyway. No one can say whether it can be asked. And we should at least know through which, as a being a student of polity, how election has been conducted and how it has been chosen. The president of India, how it's been chosen. Right? So like if you suppose that in the this year mains, it has been there was a questions in a mains that the method of election of president of India and the French president. Yes or no? So there it has to be discussed. No, but if you understand the concept, then you are in a position to explain the method, na? So for that we need to understand the process. The process should be what we are seeing the calculations, but the formula should be there and should be explained in detail what method. Like in India president, it has been chosen through an absolute majority. It is a proportional representation of single transferable vote. But in French, But in France, the president was not elected through this method. They are elected through an absolute majority. If suppose there are certain number of candidate and none of the candidate has acquired an absolute majority, then top two candidate will again face an election challenge after 10 days, which is not a process in India. Here the voting is done only once. And on the process, the method has so deduct that while counting through the proportional representations with transferring the vote, through this method we choose our president. This will be clear when we will discuss the whole the formula in class today. Okay? Shall we start? Chaliye then, let's see. So first we will see the determination of votes of electoral college. Determination of votes of electoral college. So as we see, as we know that the electoral college of president consists only the elected members of the parliament and elected members of state legislature. So how the voting of the members of state legislature were determined? So first we will see the votes of each MLA. How the votes of, what is the formula given to determine the vote of each MLA? So it says that the total population of a state divided by total numbers of members of a legislative assembly multiplied by 1/1000. Multiplied by 1/1000. This is the method through which a vote is determined of single MLA of that state. Right? Through this method we get a one MLA's vote. Through this method, through this formula. Then the total MLA's vote will be, suppose if the value of this is X into total number of MLAs. This is how the values of vote of single state legislative assembly was calculated. One by 1000. This is the method given. This is the formula. Clear? Now this here populations of the state says that the population of the state should be taken from the nearest or the recent census. But in Constitution of India says that the population of the state will be considered from 1971 census. The 1971 population census should be considered for the population of the state. And the total number of MLAs will be considered from the recent census through which it has been distributed. So this will be considered from the recent census. And this conditions of 1971 census will be continued till 2026. It means till 2026 the election of president, for the election of president, the population of the state will be considered, determined what through a 1971 census of a total populations of the state. Is this clear? And disagreement between the populations basis, and they have increased from that 71 date till 2026. The claim of certain parts that the northern India they have major populations, so they will have a major number of MLAs and they have a good amount of say in a president election. So whatever the North India wants, they can choose their own type of elections, a president through an elections. That's why it said that that should be kept to the 1971 census till 2026. Is this clear? Now we will see through an example of the calculations of first, that is vote of an each MLA. It's clear? So for this we will take an example of UP, and in the recent 2022 elections which is held to choose our president. So first we will understand through the example. So let's start the example to determine the election vote of MLA. So to understand this, let's take a example of UP. Why we are taking example of UP? Because it has a highest number of MLAs voting power. Numbers of votes is highest in UP and the lowest in Sikkim, 224. Means the total values of a vote of an MPs in a election is highest in UP and the lowest in Sikkim. So that's why we are taking an example of UP. So the population of UP in 1971 is 8 crore 38,000 lakh, 8 crore 38 lakhs 48,797, 48,797. This is the populations of UP in 1971. Clear? Number of MLAs in UPs in the recent election was 403. This is the total number of MLAs. Clear? Yes or no? Right? Now, what the formula says to calculate vote of each MLA, single MLA, the formula to calculate a vote of single MLA. So it says that the total population divided by total number of MLAs into 1 by 1000. It's clear? So here now we will see the total population is 8 crore 38 lakh 48,797 divided by 403 into 1000. So this will leads to a vote of single MLA in UP is 208. It means the single MLA in UP has a value of vote is 208. It means it represents 208 peoples in election of president. This has been acquired just to give an equal representations, proportional representative of every individuals, that every individuals have a same number of votes and equally it will be represented through its MLA. So each single MLA which has a vote value of 208 in the recent election of president in 2022, so it is representing 208 people of that state. So now this is a single MLA's vote. So now the total MLA's vote of the states, 403 MLAs multiplied by 208 vote values of one MLAs, values of votes of one MLAs, which leads to 83,824. So this is the total values of votes of an MLAs of UP. Means UP from UP, the total value of votes for the president is 83,824. Similarly, through this method, the value of vote of each state will be calculated. Are you getting my point? Each state, those who are participant of an electoral college of president. So UPs, we have seen an example for the UP. Any doubt? Clear? So note it down. It's clear? Then the value of vote will be decreased. If it decrease, if it increase, it increase. See, we will discuss this in the second part. Let me explain. This is the first part what we are discussing of related to the values of votes of each MLA. The formula to calculate the values of votes, that the total population of the states from 1971 census, and this will continue till 2026, right? If it is not increased after 2026, then after 2026, that first general census will be considered as an populations of the state while calculating the values of vote for the president. Is it clear? Then total number of MLAs into thousands. So we have, so through this method, the formula which has been prescribed, we calculated the single vote value of a single MLA, elected MLA, legislative assembly member, is given is 208. So total values for that state, 403 is total number of the MLAs multiplied by 208, that is a single value votes. So total value for whole UP legislative assemblies is 83,824. Is this clear? Similarly, through this method, each state, that is 28 states plus 2 UTs, will be calculated, and at the end it will be added. Are you getting my point? Now, why there is a need to add the vote values of all the states which is included under the electoral college, that it states, elected member of the states and elected member of the UTs, because to calculate the single vote value of MP. MP, member of parliament. Similarly, as that there is a single vote values, it means this single vote value, it means that a single MLA from the UP have a 208 values of his single vote. It means it represents 208 peoples. Are you getting my point? Single populations. No, but they have, that's why it has said proportional representation according to the population. That's why the population census was taken from the 1971. Due to uneven growth in a population. Certain states has an uneven growth of populations. Certain states have decreased of the populations, or they have a small fractions of increase in the populations. To give them a equal representations, the vote values is calculated. Are you getting my point? Right? So now if we see the second method, the first we have seen the calculations of a vote values of MLAs. The second method says that vote values of MPs. So here we will calculate our vote values of single MP, and how it will be calculated. So formula says that the total value of vote of MLAs in the country, total values of votes of MLAs in a country, divide by total number of MPs. And this means the total value of vote of MLAs means all MLAs from country, all MLAs from country. That is 28 states plus 2 UTs, Delhi and Puducherry. So method to calculate the values of votes of MLAs is, we have seen that the total population of the state on the basis of 1971 census divide by total number of MLAs multiplied by 1/1000. Through this we can calculate a single vote values, and by multiplying that single vote value into the total number of MLAs will leads to the total value for that state. So similarly, each of the states will be calculated on the basis of this. So the total values of votes for all the MLAs in a country into 2022 elections, when it was calculated, so it came to around 5,43,231 votes. This is the total votes for vote values for all the MLAs in a state. And how we reach to these calculations? By adding each of the values of the states of 20 states and 2 UTs. And this has been calculated or arrived through this method. Yes or no? Are you getting my point? Is it clear? So this is the values of votes of the total value of vote of MLAs in a country, collecting alls. And then to calculate the values of votes of an MP, we need to divide this number by the total number of elected members of the parliament. Yes or no? Are you getting my point? So now we will see the members of parliament. So members in the Lok Sabha which is elected. In 2022 voting poll in this elections, president election was 543 members who were elected in an Lok Sabha, and 233 members in a Rajya Sabha who were elected. So the total members of parliament will be 776. This is the total MPs. 776 elected MPs from the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. Any doubt? It's clear? Now we need to calculate our values of votes of single MP. And what's the formula given to calculate values of votes for single MPs? Total values of votes of all the MLAs of the country divided by the total number of MPs. These calculations will give us a value of vote for single MP. So the value of votes for single MP equals to, so the calculations, the total votes of all MLAs of country divide by total number of member of parliaments. So this, as we have seen, that the total values of votes of MLA in country in 2022 was 5,43,000 to 5,43,231. It's clear? And divided by 776. If you calculate this, so we need to take the nearest whole number. We cannot take in a fractions. So if the fractions come with the 0.5, it will be converted to the nearest one. If less than 5, then it will be nearest to the 1, below the 5 and then above 5. So by this calculations, the single vote value of MPs in 2022 was 700. This is the values of vote for the single MP. Which was less than a value of vote in the last comparison to the last elections of president, which was held in 2017. And in 2017, the single vote value of MP was 708. And this time, the single vote value for MP is to 700. So do you know why the difference of the vote values in this period? Because in 2017, the Jammu Kashmir was a state and it was participated in an election of the president. So due to that value, in 2017, the vote value of single MP was 2,708. But due to the absence of an Jammu and Kashmir in electoral college, so the vote values of single MP was reduced this period, which came as an 700. Is this clear? So we have calculated the total number of votes of MLAs, that comes as 5,43,231. Similarly, we will calculate the total number of votes of all MPs. So total number of votes of members of parliament is 700 multiplied by 776. Yes or no? So this will lead to the $54 lakhs, not 5,43,200. This is the values of total votes of MPs. It's clear? Now we will add these two votes. So the total vote in election of president is total MLA's vote plus MP's vote, which was 5,43,231 plus 5,43,200, which leads to the 10,86,531. So this is the values of total votes of MPs and MLAs in 2022 elections of president in India. That was a single for the UP, na? So we have added that UP vote was added to all, calculate the total votes. And by adding all the 28 states and 2 UTs, we come to and arrived at the numbers is this. Is it clear? Right? Now, why we need the total number of votes then? So this vote is total vote of values of votes in a president elections. A candidate need to secure an victory in a president election needs a candidate will win the elections by securing 50% plus 1 of the total vote. Right? So what is the total vote? So total vote is 10,86,531, and 50% of this plus 1, which will leads to the 5 lakhs 43,266, 5 lakhs 43,266. If a candidate secure this number of votes, so the candidate will be declared as a winner or as a president of India. So this is how the method, the vote values is calculated, which the formula is given in the constitutions. Is this clear? Any doubt in the calculations? That we will discuss. Now that will be discussed after the voting. So they have voted. A single individuals need to win the vote is 50%. So in the current election 2022, so ma'am would have need 5,43,266 vote, a minimum vote to qualify to become a president. It means that ma'am have acquired more than this vote. Yes or no? So now we will see through which the calculations method of the vote, how the vote has been calculated. Counting of votes is done. So here we will use the single transferable vote. What does this mean then? So here we have understand the proportional representations. Now we will see what does the mean single transferable vote. And the votings are done through a secret ballot. Secret ballot, you understand? Everyone put their vote in a ballot paper and put. No one knows that who have given to whom vote. This is secret ballot. It's clear? So now we'll see the counting of votes. So before counting of votes, let us discuss the process of filing of nominations in India for a president. Is this clear? Chaliye. So first we will see the process of filing of nominations by a persons for the president elections. So what is the process? So a candidate who wants to fight an election of president must be supported by the 50 electorals, either MPs or MLAs or both. This should be supported, and they were known as a proposer. They proposes the name. So 50 proposers were needed plus 50 electorals as a seconder, who seconds that we supports the candidate. So total 100 MPs or MLAs were needed to file a nominations paper. Out of that 50, minimum 50 would be required, who were known as a proposers, who proposed the name that we are proposing this candidate as our president presidential candidate, and the 50 rest 50 will be second. We support. Yes, we are supporting, we are seconding that the candidate should be filed. So if it has, and a candidate has this amount of supports, then it can file a nominations as a presidential candidate. Now the candidate must need to deposit a amount of 15,000, deposit amount of 15,000. Now this amount of 15,000 may be deposited either in a cash, directly to the officer, or showing a receipt, or it can show receipt that they have deposited in RBI. The amount has been deposited in RBI and the amount of 15,000, and they will show the deposit, or a receipt of a government treasury. Government treasury. It means these are the three ways through which a candidate can deposit an amount for filing of the nominations paper. Either they can deposit in a cash or RBI and the receipt should be shown, or in a government treasury and the receipt should be shown. Candidate. Yes, candidate. 15,000. It's clear? This is the second method of process of filing the nominations. Now the third conditions is they have to show the certificate that they have been registered as an electoral in any of the parliamentary constituency in India, which is one of the qualifications of a person to become a president, that the person should be qualified to become a member of Lok Sabha. It means that, what does this qualification means? That the individual, the persons, has to be registered in any of the parliamentary constituencies as an elector. So that certificate has to be shown during the filing of nominations. Is this clear? Candidate has to, so need to show certificate containing the registration of elector of that person in parliamentary constituencies. In which he has been registered as an elector, which is one of the conditions for qualifications of that person is required. This is a process during the filing of nominations. Is this clear? Any doubt? No? Now we will see the counting of votes. And this is little bit tricky. Not tough, but tricky. This shows that how it is different from the election of president or from the rest of the world. In India, how we choose. Shall we start the counting process? Chaliye then, let's see. shows the certificate containing the registration of elector of that persons in any parliamentary constituencies. Now we will see what does the single transferable vote is used and when it is used. So now we will see the counting of votes. Once the vote is polled and any candidate requires to qualify the president election, so needs a majority of 50% plus 1 of the polled vote. Then how this number is been acquired, which is again a different from the general elections. In general elections, the candidate who secure the maximum number of votes declare as a winner, either as an MP or MLAs. Yes or no? And the elections to the MPs and MLAs, we follow the first past the post method. First past the post method, in which a candidate who secure the maximum number of vote will declare as a winner, which is different from the method used in the election of president. In the election of president, the candidate does not require the maximum number of vote in polled, rather the candidate needs an absolute majority, means the 50% plus 1 of the total valid vote polled in the elections. Is this clear? So to understand this, we cannot take an example of that 5 lakhs of the voting. So rather, instead of that, let us take a total valid vote as 15,000 or 1,500. Let it take as an 15,000. This is the total valid poll. A candidate need to secure a winner as a president needs a vote of value of 50% plus 1 of this value, which means which candidate secure a minimum of 7,501 vote will be declared as an president, winner of a president elections. This number we have taken as an only for the example. It's clear, right? Now here the single transferable vote, right? So what we have to see, suppose there are 4 candidates were in an election of a president, A, B, C, D. Now the ballot paper which contains which were given to vote contains only 2 columns. The ballot paper, it contains only 2 columns. The column 1 contains the name of the candidate, and column 2 contains the preferential order. It means that in the election of president, the ballot does not contain name of any political party or symbol of any political party. It contains only 2 columns. One, the first column will be represented as a name of the candidate, and the second column will be known as or be given as a preferential order, right? Now there is only one conditions in an elections, that the each MLAs or MPs has to give the first preference. If anyone does not give any of the candidate as their first preference, then that particular individual's person's vote will be counted as an invalid. Are you getting the point? Yes or no? Giving the first preference is mandatory. If anyone does not give in, suppose that one individual who does not give first preference to anyone, it means he does not want in at their place anyone to be a president. So he has given 2, 3, 4, or he does not mention anyone of this favor. It means he does not give any of them to the first preference. So his vote will be counted as an invalid. So it is mandatory to provide the first preference. To give first preference. Is this clear? Right? Now let's see how it been conducted then. Suppose I choose B as my first preference, candidate B as my first preference, and then D as my second preference, A as my third preference, and C as my fourth. There are 4 candidates, so I have assigned the 4 persons as my preference. First preference means I want B as a president at my first instance. If B does not, then my second preference is D, that the persons D should be elected as a president. And at third means after that the third is my, and the last my preference is C, which needs to be elected as an president. Is it clear? This preference method has been given, and as I said that the giving of a first preference is mandatory. If anyone who does not give any of the first preference, that individual's vote of MPs or MLA will be considered as an invalid. It's clear? So voting has been done. All these members and of MPs and MLAs, they have voted for the MPs president. So the candidates are in the sequence who get the first preference. So suppose that A get 5,250 votes as first preference. This much of votes they shows that they needs A as their president, and B gets 400 and 800 as their first preference. Similarly, C gets 2700 as their first preference. Similarly, D gets 2250 votes as their first preference. The total is 15,000. If we calculate the total, that is 15,000. So if election was suppose choosing for the MPs or MLAs, as we have discussed, where the first past the post election was a method, then the candidate having a higher number of votes would be declared as a winner candidate. It means in this case A would be declared as a winner candidate. But this is not at general elections where the first past the post election method was used. Here the representative of single transferable vote is used. So it means none of the candidate has secured the minimum required number of votes to get elected after the first counting. The first counting has been done. So none of the candidates has acquired the required majority or the required threshold limit they have passed. Is this clear? So then what? So if none of the candidate secured the required majority, then the candidate who has secured the least number of votes will be eliminated from the elections. So who has acquired the least number of votes in the candidate? D. D has acquired the least number of votes polled in the first counting. So D will be eliminated. Then what? Then it come the role of single transferable vote. How it will be done? It's clear? So the first counting, and we have seen that during the first counting, none of the, if suppose under the first counting, the candidate has reached the limit of the majority, then it will be declared as a winner. If not, then it will happen the second counting. And in the first counting, the least number of vote polled for that candidate will be eliminated from the race. Next, then what? Is this clear? So under the second counting. And here the candidates A has acquired 5,200 and what was the case? 5,500 and 250. B 4,800. C acquires 2,700. This is the case after the first counting. And D, who has acquired a 2,250 votes, which is the least in the number, was eliminated. So what? So now those persons, these 2,250 has given a first preference to the D, that these members want D as their president, but they have been eliminated. So these D's 2,250 number of persons votes, the second preference would be now counted, right? So these, suppose that they have given A as their second preference, out of the 2,250 is 300 as second preference to A. Are you getting the point? That they have these 2,250 members were preferred first as D to be the president, but they, being that D get a very least number of vote, it has been eliminated from the race. So these 2,250 voters, second preference will be counted. So suppose out of the 2,250, 300 had chosen A as their second preference, then 150 has been chosen for the B as their second preference. Yes or no? And C is given the 900 as their second preference. If we totaled all the numbers, it will lead to the 20, 20, 50, 22 and 50. Yes? These vote preference will be transferred to the account of those candidates which were still in a race. So 300 will be added to those number of A which has a first preference with the second preference of D. 1050 will be added to B and 900 will be added to C. Then after the second counting, the result is that A secure 5550, B secure 5085, 5,850, C secure 3,600. Still, after the second counting, the result is same, that none of the candidate has secured the majority, required majority, which is 707,501. It means again the counting will move to the third round. And to continue to move the counting to the third round, the least number of voted polled candidate will be eliminated from the race. Are you getting it or not? So C will be eliminated from the poll in the third counting. So third counting will be here in this case will be held between the two candidates A and B, because none of the candidate has secured the limit, prescribed limit, majority of 7,501 out of the total number of votes of 15,000. Next. So third round. Third counting. So third counting, we will continue with the A. A has acquired 5,550 votes. B is 5,850 votes. and C, which has acquired a 3600 vote, which is the least, will be eliminated. So now the C's third preference will be seen, that C who have given a third preference. These numbers of voters who have given a third preference to anyone. Suppose that out of the 3600 voters, 1700 has chosen A as their third preference. Right? And remaining 1900 has chosen B as their third preference. Yes or no? It's clear? D. No. Now this. It has been eliminated. No, it's not. It only. This is an example. How it only will be counted in this context only. The number of candidates who has left. Who has left. It will be counted in this only. It's clear? So this is 3600. So this vote values will be transferred. Single transferred. This vote values will be transferred to those candidates who are in a race. So this will be added to the values of vote of A, that is 5550 plus 1700, which leads to the 052 and 052 700 and 7250. This is the vote values of A. B. B has acquired 5850 plus 1900, which again leads to the 7750 vote. So after the third counting, A secured 7250 and B secured 7750. So after the third counting, both have crossed the minimum required majority, but B has acquired the maximum vote polled against the A. So after the third counting, the B is declared as an president of India or as an winner. So this is the process through which India choose their president. It depends till the reach of the majority. There are only two candidates. Only two candidates were there. Then it depends upon the number of candidates. Na? We have taken as an example. Then fourth. Here we have taken an even number, na? Suppose there are two candidates only, then there is no requirement of the second counting. At the first go, it will be decided. Is this clear? Let's summarize once from the earlier what we have seen. Now I hope that the confusion related to this formula and the method will be crystal clear to everyone. Now there would be no doubt in any of your mind, right? Now, so we will start from here, determinations of votes. So we have started calculating. First we have seen how the votes of MPs and MLAs were determined. So voters of the each MLAs will be determined by the total population of the state based on 1971 census divided by the total number of MLA of the state respective to the recent census multiplied by 1/1000. It's clear? So we have taken an example for this as an UP with the largest number of vote polled. So here we have taken the total populations of the UP in 1971 was 8 crore 38 lakhs 48,797 populations, and the total number of MLAs were 403, which the recent elections has shown. So if we do the calculations, if we put these numbers into the formula, we get a vote of single values for single MLA, and the values for single MLA vote is 208 in UP. So total value of votes in UP of all the including all MLAs will be 403 number of MLAs multiplied by 208, which leads to 83,824 numbers. So these 403 MLAs have the total values of 83,824 numbers. Similarly, this method will be used to calculate the values of votes of all the states which were electoral part of the president elections, including the two UTs, Delhi and Puducherry. And after calculating this, it will be added. So the vote values of MPs, and we required that total number to calculate the vote values of MPs, and vote values of MPs is calculated through the total number of votes of MLAs of over the country, all over the country. It means we need to sum up all the 28 states vote values of MLAs and 2 UTs of MLAs, which leads to the 5 crores 43 lakhs 231 votes of MLAs in recent 2022 elections. Okay, is it clear? So to calculate the values of MP votes, we need, the formula says to calculate the total votes values of all MLAs divided by total number of MPs. And now here we are talking about the MPs, it means only the elected MPs, because only the elected MPs were consisted under the electoral college of president, not all the MPs of parliament. So here we have taken that in 2022, in the recent elections of elected members of a Lok Sabha was 543 members were elected, and 233 were elected to the Rajya Sabha. So the total MPs elected in a parliament is 776. It's clear? Now we will put these figures and respective formula to get a value of single MP's vote value. Is this clear? So by putting the figures in a respective formula, we arrived that the single MP member of parliament have a vote value of 700, which is less than the last elections of the president in 2017. At that time it was 708, and the reason behind this deductions or the less number of values of vote is just because in 2017 the Jammu and Kashmir was also a participant of an electoral college of a president, but in 2022 the Jammu and Kashmir was not an participant because the election has not been held till the elections of president. So that's why in 2022 the vote values of single MP is 700. Is this clear? Similarly, we can calculate the total number of vote values of MPs. 700 multiplication of 776, which leads to the 5,43,200. right? So we have calculated the total values of the MLAs in the country and total values of MPs in a country, which leads to the total number of votes is 10,86,531. This is the total vote values. So a candidate needs to win the election of president, he needs a 50% plus 1 of the value of vote, that is absolute majority, through which it can be win. So the 50% of 10,86,531 plus 1 leads to the value vote of 5,43,266. If in an elections ma'am would have has get a 5,43,226 vote, she will had been declared winner, but she got a more than that vote. But this is the minimum number of required vote to win the elections. This is the determinations of values of votes in president elections. Is this clear? Any doubt till here? No. Now we will move to the counting of votes. We will understand the single transfer. What does this mean? And this all we have discussed is done through the secret. The voting is done through the secret ballot, right? And we have also discussed the filing of a nominations paper. Now let's move to the counting of votes. So the counting of votes is process in which it's supposed, and for that we need we have taken an example as a 15,000 of vote values, and a candidate need to win the election of president, it needs a 50% of 15,000 plus 1, which leads to the 7,501 vote. If any candidate acquire the number of 7,501, it will be declared as a winner. If more than one has acquired this number, then the highest number of voters will be, poll vote will be acquired as a winner. Is this clear? Now, for example, we have taken a 4 candidate A, B, C, D, and here also we have seen that making first preference is mandatory. If after first preference you does not make the second preference, that does not matter. But without making a first preference, if you are making second, third or fourth or any preference, that will lead to the invalid of your vote. Are you getting my point? To avoid the invalidation of vote, everyone has to mention the first preference. It is mandatory. So here we have seen that the B get this, I have made a preference. So suppose that first, second, third and fourth. So first, in the first round of counting, the first preference of votes will be counted. And after the counting of the first preference of vote, the result is like the A got 5,250 vote, B got 4,800 vote, C get 2,700 vote, and D get 2,250 votes. And these are the first preferences of the electoral voters. But after the first counting, we have seen that none of the candidate has acquired the required majority. So it means now it will be conducted the second counting. And in the second counting, the candidate who has secured the least number of votes will be eliminated for the next round. So by the first counting, we have come to see that the D has got a least number of votes among these. So D will be eliminated in the next counting. Clear? So the next counting, in the next counting, the D is eliminated, but those candidate who has preferred the D as their first preference, now their second preference voting will be counted. So these 22 250 members, if suppose they have given A as the 300 votes as a second preference, three out of the 2250 members, 300 has chosen A as their second preference. 1050 has chosen B as the second preference, and 900 has chosen as their second preference to the C. So this vote values will be added to the vote values of A, B and C. So after adding the vote values of second preference to the first preference of A, B and C, it leads to A has, after the second counting, has reached to the 5,550 votes. B has reached to 5,850 votes, and C 3,600 votes. Again, after the second preference, none of the candidate has reached to the required majority, which is 7,501. It means it will be conducted for the third round, and in the third round, to continue the third round, here the candidate who has secured the least number of votes will be eliminated for the third round. So here we can see that the C has acquired the least among all these three. So C will be eliminated for the third round. But in the third round, as we move to the third round, C's third preference will be distributed among the rest of the candidate. So out of this 3600, suppose 1700 has chosen A as their third preference, 1900 has chosen B as their third preference. Clear? So these vote will be transferred to the remaining candidate. So the 1700 is added to the 5,550. It leads to the 7,250. And B, which was after the second round, vote have 5,850. So it was added 1900. So it reached to the 7,750. Now if we see that both the candidates have passed the required majority, which is of 7,000. No, sorry. Only B has passed the required majority, which is of 7,550. So B is been declared as an President of India. So if you see the first round of counting, so here A would have as an emergency is a view that he has secured the more number of votes. So in the final he will win, but that not has been happened. The case has been changed by the second and third preferences of the voting. Is this clear? Any doubt in this? That's what we have seen. Na? Out of these total number of values, what we have calculated, this is the total vote values. And that is 15,000. That is for example only. So here requires this number of values that we have taken. This is not possible to calculate of these such a vast number. No? That's why we have taken a small values to understand, to just get an understanding. The process is same, only the values were replaceable with this, of this. Any more questions? How it is possible? No, through this method it is not possible. Na? No. Now here is a difference we need to understand, the difference between the president of India, election of President of India and the President of France. So here we have seen that in the first round, suppose that in the first round, if suppose this is France, if the election is conducted in France, so there are 4 candidates, right, and all have been voted, but none of the candidates would have acquired the absolute majority, right? So what will happen in France then? What's the process? So it says that if the situations arises there where none of the candidate acquired absolute majority, that is 50% plus 1, then in that case the first 2 candidates, and it means the highest number of candidates, the highest voters of a candidate, and second highest, the 2 candidates who has acquired the first highest and the second highest candidate will again face an elections after 7 days. After 7 days, there will be again an election in the country, and again the country will again vote only between these 2 candidates. Whatever the number of candidates be there in the first round of elections, if none of the candidates in France secured the required majority, then after the first 2 highest getter of an votes of candidate will have to face again an elections in the next 7 after the 7 days, where again the voters, the citizens will again vote for them, and then it will be decided among these 2. This is a case in France, but this is not a case in India, where it has been avoided, because conducting an elections, it requires the machineries, it have a huge financial source investment also, loss also, and state machineries is also involved. So to avoid such huge loss, the Indian constitution's forefathers have decided to go with this method, where in the first round of calculations, if none of the candidate was declared winner, then it will be have to go to the second counting, then third. It means in any of these cases, the elections will be held at only once. Unlike France, where the elections will be held twice to change, it means there is no method or systems of a counting of a second rounds with the transferable vote. And this is the same method through which the President of India is elected, the member of Rajya Sabha was elected. This is the same method through which it been elections of these 2 of the offices were done. Is this clear? Do the Britain has a president? No, it's simple as we have, it's a parliamentary form. That's a different thing. That's what we'll say. That's a different thing. Any more doubts related to this topic? Is this clear? Right? So this is a sheet what we have get. Do you all have a sheet? लीजिए. So if we go through this sheet, you can see that the 17, 19, is completed, right? Nineteenth, single transferable vote. This is what we have done. Proportional representation and single transferable vote. Just go through once if related to this. Is this clear? So now we'll see the next, that is term of office of president, Article 56. These are the small topics. So we should see, right? This I hope the now there should not be any doubt related to the method and calculations of the elections. Clear? Now I have taken the 4 candidates, but mainly there are only 2 candidates. One candidate from the government, the majority party, and one from the oppositions. So that is very easy to decide the who is become the members. There is only one country who has a single party which is mentioned in constitutions, that is China. Single party. None other than the Communist Party of China exist. It is unconstitutional there for the any other regional or any other party to be existence. So we'll see the term of the Article 56. So it says that the term of the office of president shall be 5 years from date on which he enters upon the office. Is Indian president eligible to re-elections? Eligible for re-elections? How many number of times? No. Do we have any persons who has elected for 2 number of times? The first president. So a candidate is eligible for re-election any number of times. Unlike USA. In United States of America, a candidate is only given 2 terms. It means that any candidate can only have a limitations to become a president only for 2 times. A candidate, any persons in America can become only 2 times a president of America, either in the same, consecutive, successive, or with the interval, but only for the 2 times. But in India, there is no such restrictions of becoming a president number of times. A candidate can become any number of time. Is it clear? Yes or no? Right? Now, so can the office of the President of India, can it be vacated before the 5 years of terms? Yes. So here, if the tenure of, or you can say that term of the office is 5 years, it means before ending of the 5 years, the election should be happen. Before ending of the term of the 5 years of the president, the election should be happened. And we can see in the recently that the election was completed before the ending period of the Honorable Ramnath Govind sir, President. Before his term was expired, ma'am was elected as a president. So before ending of the 5 years term tenure, the election for the president must be conducted. It's clear? So there are two ways through which the office of the president can be vacant before the period of 5 years. Two ways. In the first, either by the resigning and resignations given to vice president, and these two way other than death. Death is also one of the reasons the vacancies of office in president. If the president has got expired in an office, then also it can be vacated, right? So other than death, the first is through resigning and address to the Vice President of India. Address to Vice President of India. Is this clear? Yes or no? Second method is through impeachment. Impeachment. Article 61. Only on the ground mentioned for the impeachment is ground for impeachment is violation of constitutions. Violation of constitutions. So there is only one ground mentions for which the impeachment of a president will be done, and the ground is violation of constitutions. So what will be termed as a violation of constitutions? What do we understand by the violation of constitution? Or if suppose, and I am giving you situations, that if suppose, as we know that the prime ministers and ministers were appointed by the president, and the ministers were appointed after the appointment of the prime minister, right? So as a candidate has appointed as a prime minister by the president, and he has forwarded a list of ministers to be appointed. He has given a list to the president that these number of persons will be appointed as, should be appointed as a ministers. And if suppose that the president add any members to that list or remove any members to the list from that list. Are you getting my point? Suppose a situations where a president add a number, any candidate to that list or remove any candidate from that list. That will amount to the lead to the violation of constitutions. Why? Exactly. So this will also amount to the violation of constitution. It means he has not authority to add or to remove any of the candidate from the list which is given by the prime ministers to be appointed as a ministers. If the president, which is constitutional mandatory to do a job, like he has a constitutional mandatory to by the 24th Constitutional Amendment Act, then that he shall assent to the bill of the Constitution Amendment, is mandatory to give his assent, and he suppose he refused, then that will also amount to the violation of constitution. The duties which has been mandated on the president by the constitutions, and if the president dishonored that duty or refuses to perform that duty, that will lead to the violation of constitutions. Is this clear? Any doubt? Nahin? Chaliye then. Thank you. We will discuss impeachment and other process in the next class. That the office should not be remain vacant. Ramnath Kovind, no, his term of office was over. He has elected for 5 years. So his term of office is going to be expired. So the government decided to, and there is a provisions that the election should be continued. Oh, that's why there is no reason. He has not been removed from here. He has not resigned. The term of office is end. Yeah, that will be covered. That will be covered. No, not bound. The executive power, Article 53 says that he will work directly or officer subordinate to him. But those were known will be considered as a violation of constitutions where he is constitutionally bound and he refuses to do that. For what? No, it is not like that they have to advise him. But suppose that if Council of Ministers loses majority in the House, then there is no Council of Ministers. So after that, he has to act only on his discretions. So it leads on the situation where the president is bound. Then if it is not close, is this clear? Any more doubt? So thank you.